Hello EFD squad and welcome back to Continental Club, where we discuss the hottest topics in European football. Joining me, it's the Beard, it's Freckles. We've got a full panel, we're going for it. First question is from Yuri Galachian, and he's asked, how far is Ligue 1 off the Bundesliga? Now, French clubs having a little renaissance in Europe, German clubs stagnating, coefficient shrinking. Patrick Van Straten. More words, please.
Yeah, I think the depth in Ligue 1 is actually pretty good at the moment, at least at the top of the table.
Yep.
I think that when you look at the absolute super clubs, PSG versus Bayern Munich, you'd probably say Bayern still just about have the edge, but that's quite an even match between those two sides now. But when you look at the second best, third best and fourth best in their respective leagues, then I think actually Ligue 1 has overtaken. At the moment, we've got a really exciting Lyon side, which is kind of, we're seeing them the way that we used to see Borussia Dortmund, you know, as this hotbed of young talent. Monaco have got a fantastic manager, and despite turning over their squad every year, remain extremely competitive and difficult to beat. And Marseille, under Rudy Garcia, seem to have had a bit of a renaissance. I mean, when they got big investment from the United States, we sort of worried that they'd just start doing a kind of Milan and just throwing it around on absolutely anybody. But as it is, they seem like they're being reasonably sensible, if kind of picking up perhaps players a little bit older than we'd like. So, I don't know, I look at those clubs and I think right now I would rather watch a match between any of the Ligue 1 top four than I would between any of the top four in Germany.
Yeah, I think they're punching above the weight, aren't they, as well in Europe, the French sides at current. So Lyon made the semi-finals of the Europa League in 16-17. Marseille made the final 17-18. Monaco semi-finals in 16-17. Comparatively, Joe, German clubs struggling. Bayern haven't reached the Champions League final since 2013. Dortmund haven't made it past the quarterfinals since 2013 either, and are on a very slippery path, let's say, to European obscurity. Schalke haven't reached the European semi-final since 2010-11. So French clubs in the ascendancy, Bundesliga, pretty much going down. Joe, what do you make of the state of the Bundesliga top six, let's say? Because Bayern have won it now for the past umpteen seasons by an average of 16 points each time.
Well, I think the trouble with the Bundesliga right now is that any of the top tier talent that emerges from a top six club just immediately gets snapped up by Bayern Munich. It's a Juventus scenario. We've seen it again this summer with Leon Goretzka, and I just start to worry about the rest of the league, that they're effectively losing talent too early, and how you break that monopoly, I don't know. You've started to see the same thing happen at PSG, I hate to add, so I hope that doesn't start happening consistently over the next few years. The one thing the German league has that I feel the French league doesn't is a better pool of emerging managerial talent.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
And whether or not that's down to better coaching infrastructure in the country, or just simply the fact that they're having a bit of a golden generation of German coaching talent, I'm not too sure. The French league doesn't yet have that. I think even at PSG, some of the coaching talent we've seen over the last few seasons has been sort of second tier, maybe even third tier. I wouldn't describe Laurent Blanc or Unai Emery as top tier talent.
No.
I think that the arrival of Thomas Tuchel is certainly the most exciting managerial arrival we've seen in the league for a number of years. But even then, I still think the emerging German managerial talent outweighs the French managerial talent. So I think what you'll see over the coming seasons is that German top six start to reinvigorate themselves a little bit just because of the coaching talent they've got in the country, comparatively to the French.
Well, we've got Nagelsmann already going to RB Leipzig next year, and whilst Hoffenheim do have, you know, substantial financial backing, they don't have the scouting infrastructure that RB Leipzig have, and they don't actually have the money to spend that RB Leipzig have. That'll be a really interesting combination of people. But it's a good point that you were making about them losing their players too early, and actually this reminds me of something you've said about Celtic. Like, when you get a pool of young players who work well together and are clearly going to grow into stars, at a certain point you have to say, regardless of the money that's being offered, maybe we just don't sell these guys for 2 or 3 years longer than we normally would, in order that we can have a crack at trying to win a title. You know, Monaco got a bit lucky that a bunch of these guys came along at the same time, but also they turned down moves for Kylian Mbappe when he was still a 17-year-old, you know, and Fabinho and Camille Glick and people were after these guys, and they said, you know what, we're going to keep them. We're going to maybe lose a little bit of money, but we're going to have a shot at winning a title, and they managed to do that.
And that's what Dortmund did so successfully under Jurgen Klopp. They kept the same talent pool for 2 to 3 seasons, despite the fact they were getting significant offers for players like Robert Lewandowski, and they were so happy to let Lewandowski run his contract down to 0 years left and let him leave on a free and attempt to win silverware than take the 50 or 40 million pound price tag that was being bandied around at the time for him. So I think that's something that German teams either need to do, or the league as a whole need to sort out in order for any other top 6 team to really effectively challenge Bayern Munich again.
I think regeneration is probably a little bit harder in Germany, as there is, I'd say, more talent in France at the moment, especially as they have their pick of the
playing talent
as the North African markets as well. Interesting little nugget that I think Hertha and Hoffenheim were the first German clubs to finish bottom of their Champions League groups.
Wow.
Really?
Either last year or the year before. So yeah, still have a fairly decent pedigree, don't they? Still go far in the Europa. But perhaps the more interesting question is then, if we're going to weigh up PSG and Bayern as sort of 2 clubs that embody this situation, is who's still better equipped to win the Champions League? In my opinion, it's still Bayern, and I feel like if if Neymar goes to Real Madrid, then the PSG project, undone at the seams, is a little bit strong, because they're still going to have Mbappe on a long-term contract. They're still going to attract top talent. I mean, but already kind of vital parts of that side are kind of sounding out moves. Rabiot wanted to go to Barcelona. Neymar has said, I'm not moving this year, which is always, are we looking for a move the year after? So we talk about this, the ability to keep players for 2 or 3 years. Can PSG keep their Galacticos for any longer than 2 to 3 years when they are smashing the league like they are now?
I actually disagree slightly. I think PSG are better equipped to win the Champions League this year. I kind of agree with you in terms of they might well unravel, and that forward planning, I'm hoping, from a PSG point of view, has been thought about in the boardroom level, and I'm sure it probably will have done, because they've invested so heavily. I'm sure they're already planning for a world post Neymar and who they're going to sign with the funds they get from him, because it will be an enormous amount of money, probably a world record transfer yet again. So I think that right now, at this moment, if I look at the 2 sides, I see PSG, who are more of an emerging talent team, more in their prime, and Bayern Munich, who have a lot of experience, but haven't quite got over the line with that experience. And it's a year older again. I don't see Robben and Ribery as potentially being the players they were 2 to 3 seasons
They're quite
ago
flat,
to carry
some
them
of
over
them.
the line.
Goretzka, one other.
They brought in Goretzka and is it Alphonso Davies?
Yeah.
Well, he's only
from the
17
MLS,
though,
so
yeah.
he's not going to start. And I just feel like PSG right now, the forward line, the quality they've got in midfield, and the coaching talent they've got in Thomas Tuchel, just edges them slightly ahead of Bayern Munich in the race for the Champions League for me.
Yeah, I actually agree with that. I think Tuchel is a better coach than Kovac, and when I look at Bayern now, what I see, is a kind of post-peak squad.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong, their defence is still going to be excellent. They've got amazing defensive talent, and it looks like Benjamin Pavard will probably join next year. You know, that adds to Kimmich and Alaba, who's still there. You know, and Zula. So they've got young talent there. But in midfield, I like Goretzka. I don't think he's a patch on Vidal. I think that's in the long term, it's a good move, but in the short term, it's a downgrade. Thiago's fitness is never reliable. Lewandowski is about to be 30. Their talent in wide areas, as good as Gnabry could be, as good as Coman is, they are not Ribery and Robben. And that is quite troubling for me. Whereas I think when I look at PSG, as much as we say, oh, well, they failed in the Champions League, or they haven't got past the round of 16, they haven't done this. When you actually look at the margins in those games, it's been very, very narrow. They were extremely unlucky to go out against Barcelona 2 years ago.
As it has with Bayern, unlucky to lose against Real Madrid.
Yeah, no, I
Semi-finals
completely agree.
last 5 years.
I completely agree, except that I think that PSG has got better since 2 years ago when it was being managed by Emery and they didn't have Neymar and Mbappe. Whereas I look at Bayern 2 years ago under Ancelotti and I think they've actually got worse. I'm not sure that Kovac is any better, and more importantly, a bunch of their key players have got 2 years older. So, either team could do it, but really I think that PSG's prospects are a little bit brighter. And even if they lost Neymar next year, they'd still have Mbappe, whereas Bayern, how do they move on from Lewandowski? How do they move on from Ribery and Robben? I'm not sure. who there is coming through, who is of that talent. Even Thiago, I don't know how they replace somebody who's that good.
I think they've got a bit of a war chest to spend after having quite a flat
You'd hope
summer.
so.
They're quite resistant to it, though, aren't they? They're quite resistant to paying what needs to be paid.
I'm going to stick to my guns. I'm going to go with Bayern. These guys think PSG. Who do you think? Let us know in the poll just above. Moving on. Last question then before we move on to quick-fire questions comes from Adnan Zafar, and he said, Asensio played very well against Croatia. Do you think he's ready to fill the boots of CR7 for Real Madrid and be the star man for Spain? Now, let's look at the numbers of said boots he has to fill. Admittedly, not by himself. That'll be across the front three. Don't be absurd, Adnan. Ronaldo, he took 180 shots last season, more than double any other player at Real Madrid. He scored 26 La Liga goals in 27 games. 7% of his touches were shots. He took 6.6 shots per 90. But with Asensio, you get a totally different beast, don't you? And with that front three, because I think when Lopetegui's fully embedded, he will play a 4-3-3. You're going to have a front three that work a lot harder. They're going to split the goals between them. And I think we're going to see a more flexible, fluid Madrid who are more well-equipped, actually more adaptable to these different scenarios that were presented to them over the course of last season. What do you make of his start to the season, gentlemen? And do you think he is going to be Real Madrid's star man?
I don't think he's going to be their star man. I think that's probably going to be Gareth Bale, and mainly because of his price tag and his form at the start of the season. He's always going to be that Galactico figure at Madrid whilst Ronaldo's not there and they haven't signed another one since. So I think it's a little bit harsh to say Asensio and put that much pressure on Asensio to say you're going to be the man that fills Cristiano's boots, you're going to be the man that's getting 6.6 shots off per 90 and getting 180 shots across the course of a season. It's just not going to happen. Asensio's not that type of player. I think he's taken around 2.7 shots per 90 this season. Even that's up from last season when he was around 1.8. So he's definitely taking more shots from more advanced areas, but he's always going to be more creative, he's always going to work harder, and he's always going to be more of a team player than Cristiano Ronaldo. Yep. I think that he's likely to get a lot of minutes under Lopetegui. We know that Lopetegui liked to use him in that Spain side. And I think at the end of the day, we need to stop thinking about who is going to replace Ronaldo. Nobody's going to replace Ronaldo. He's irreplaceable. He's one of the superstar players that's ever graced the football pitch. Stop thinking anybody can fill his boots. It's going to have to be a team effort to produce his numbers.
But I do think,
and Asensio is a name that can fit in and out of a 4-3-3 system that works well.
It's going to liberate those front three, I think, his absence from the side. Because now the workload is going to be split. I mean, equally, none of them are going to get 40 plus goals, are they, in the same sense Ronaldo did. But I think we're going to see maybe Benzema have his best season before he starts to decline. And I think Gareth Bale, if he can stay injury-free, like we've said, Van Straten, 20 plus goals in the league maybe?
Yeah, quite possibly. I mean, we've always thought that if he stays fit, he's capable of doing that. I mean, the thing about how Real Madrid will play now as well is they have another way of creating chances which they didn't have before, which is counter-pressing. Like, if you watch Real Madrid so far under Lopetegui, they counter-press like a normal top-level side. You know, when you have possession and you push up the field, when you lose the ball, you have to have a way of stopping counter-attacks. And normally, that's when you counter-press. You have a load of guys up there so you swarm around the ball and prevent teams from breaking. That's not really what they did with Zidane. With Zidane, it was pretty much they relied on the fact that they had an excellent defensive midfielder and outstanding individual defenders to make plays, and that was how they ran it. It wasn't a great idea, and as a result, they were not particularly good defensively last season. So I think that if they press in that way, like we're talking about, then they will create chances through doing that too. So in a way, Asensio can create chances through his passing, but also just through being part of a more coherent pressing system. They're going to take less shots overall, fewer shots overall. I mean, we've already seen that with Ronaldo going to Juve's shot numbers have jumped up from, you know, a reasonable level last season to Real Madrid levels, and Real Madrid's shot numbers have dropped from their levels last season to kind of Juventus's. Yeah. So he does make a difference there, but a lot of those shots are not necessarily amazing quality. With Ronaldo, he will shoot from anywhere. And so I think that they might just be a different sort of side as opposed to an inferior side. in the long run, Asensio's not going to replace Ronaldo. He's simply not that type of player. He's far more of a creator, I think, than a goal scorer. And I think they will still be looking for a goal scoring Galactico.
I like their current 4-2-3-1 with Cruz at the base of midfield and Isco sort of floating around in that number 10 role. He has a great relationship with Asensio. Every time I watch Asensio and Isco, they seem to have a really good understanding of one another, which is quite exciting to watch. I just think this means they'll be on less on the lesser sides, let's say. I think Bale will continue to score important goals. I think so will Karim Benzema. And like you said, their numbers might drop, but that doesn't necessarily mean their points total will. I think they'll probably still improve on that last season. I mean, they've made a perfect start. Atletico haven't. Atletico always make hard work of beating the lesser sides, and their shot numbers have been worse this season, as have their defensive numbers, which we sort of touch upon in Sunday Vibes. But are Real Madrid the biggest challengers to the title? We thought it was going to be Atletico Madrid at the start of the season. Now we're 4 games in. Are they edging towards the contenders to Barcelona?
I think, well, they're obviously the clear contenders at the moment, given that Atletico Madrid have started the season so poorly. But I still think Lopetegui needs to find his way, but he needs to find a system that suits his current roster perfectly. And it's really hard to do that, given that you've got Modric, you've got Cruz, you've got Casemiro. So when those 3 are in there, where does Isco play? And when you can't fit Isco into the team, does that come at the detriment of Asensio? And if he needs to drop out, how does it balance? It's quite a hard and complicated squad to get right. Obviously, Casemiro has to play the big games because he offers that defence so much cover. But when you're not playing big teams, do you need Casemiro in there, or can you get away with a Modric-Cruz pivot? I personally think in the smaller games, Casemiro is not particularly needed against the likes, against teams that are going to finish 15th and downwards in La Liga.
Maybe.
So I would go for a 4-2-3-1 if I was Lopetegui, and I would drop out Casemiro unless you're playing the big team.
Yeah, maybe they'll just be a bit more changeable this season. You know, they might try a different tack against a different side. So I don't know. I'm interested to see how they develop, but I think that we're looking at a couple of windows before we really know what Real Madrid's going to be like in a post-Ronaldo world.
Yeah, I think the Mariano signing was pretty embodied that pretty well.
Yeah.
That felt like a striker to keep them going 6 months or a year until they move for Neymar. Anyway, who do you think are going to be the biggest challengers to Barcelona and the La Liga crown? Is it Atletico Madrid or Barcelona? No, or Real Madrid. That's it. Got it right second time round. Let us know in the comments below. Quick fire questions. Time for quick fire questions. First one comes from Adam Burke. Which rival player do you find impossible to hate?
Oh, God.
Go.
Rival player, David Silva. David Silva at Manchester City. He's just a lovely guy, isn't he? Everything about him just screams he's a nice bloke. Yeah. So, how can you hate a man like that?
Sure.
Probably Danny Rose. I really like Danny Rose.
Danny Rose?
I think he's a really good player, and but it's about who you think. Can you hate Danny Rose?
No, he doesn't seem like the most likeable guy.
I don't know. I mean,
any man who can fall out of Pochettino surely
I mean, I like Eriksen and stuff as well. I don't mind this Spurs side. If I were to pick a team who I absolutely despise, I really hate Chelsea, but I like Kante. I really hate Man United, but I like Lukaku.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, they're more obvious than Danny Rose. That threw me.
Danny Rose did throw me as well.
Eriksen, Dele Alli.
No, Dele Alli's super hateable.
More so than Danny Rose.
What has Danny Rose done that's hateable ever?
He's Dele Alli's to force his way out of the club, isn't he?
I don't care about that. I'm not a Spurs fan. Dele Alli's just a massive he seems like an absolute.
On the pitch, maybe. He seems like a fairly chill bloke off of it.
Yeah, but that doesn't make a difference to me. I don't give a who he is off the pitch. It's not important to me.
It's your opinion, isn't it? There we go. I couldn't even name you 6 Rangers players at the moment, so moving on.
Ferguson.
Usain
Bannon.
Parker. Should Manchester United look to swap Anthony Martial for Christian Pulisic if he doesn't kick on this season? Seems like a fairly simple one.
I mean, I guess so. I mean, it doesn't really make a difference, does it?
Pulisic for
Martial's not playing.
Let me just swap.
I kind of feel like Christian Pulisic, his talent level is a little bit lower than Anthony Martial potentially. Maybe that's just because I haven't watched.
Maybe not his talent. His output. Right
maybe that's just because I haven't watched enough of him at Dortmund. But I guess Martial's not playing for us anyway. So what difference does it make?
Kind of kills 2 birds with 1 stone.
They shouldn't do that though.
No, I don't think we should do that.
No. Okay, next question. Has Coma, who do you think will have the most underrated season outside of the top 5 leagues?
Wow. Outside of the top
Most
5
underrated
leagues.
season
I mean,
outside.
Despite their mass
Vague
exodus,
question.
Sporting have made an okay start in the Liga Nos.
Lewis Nani
They
captain
are-
him, isn't he?
Yeah, they're level with Benfica, which is pretty incredible considering that all of their good players left, apart from Bruno Fernandes. Should we just say that?
I think Ajax as well.
Ajax.
Ajax have got a lot of really exciting talent coming through at the moment, and a lot of people will be like, well, you know, it's the Eredivisie, but some of these players are going to be stars.
They've been playing some lovely football as well.
Van de Beek?
Ajax.
Yeah, Van der Beek, De Ligt, Neres, Frenkie de Jong. Yeah, like there's a load of talent.
They've been
there.
playing some lovely football at the start of the season as well, Ajax.
They're a really exciting club actually right now.
Their former reserve team coach took over, right?
Yeah,
The youth team coach, wasn't it?
it's what's his name?
I can't remember.
Don't know.
Anyway, moving on. Patrick will get it later. Moving on, final question. Who do you think is the worst top tier club in Europe right now? I'm not sure we have a sensible answer for this. I felt like we should do one more.
Man United.
What?
Rubbish.
The worst top tier club?
Worse than Cardiff and Frosinone. Are they in Serie A?
Yeah.
Worse than-
Huesca.
Worse than Huesca.
Who's bottom of Serie A? 'Cause it'll be them.
Crotone, they've gone.
Whoever's bottom of Serie A is almost always the
Who's
worst
bottom?
club in
In
Europe's
fact,
top
who's
5
bottom of
leagues.
France? Who's bottom of the Liga?
Oh god.
Because they're going to be howling.
Yeah, they'll be embarrassingly bad.
Yeah, not sure. Some absolute great performers.
What about Spal? What are they up to?
Spal?
Spal.
Is that how you say it? I've always said it.
No, it's
always
funny.
thought it was S-P-A-L.
It's just funny to say
Oh,
Spal.
Spal.
Outside.
Spalgetti
Oh,
Bolognese.
no, at a top tier. I was going to say a Greek team, but moving on. Anyway, that's it. What a note to end on.
Terrible
That
quickfire
was,
questions, that was.
Quickfire questions for this week. Thank you for sending yours in. If you'd like to feature, get your questions to us on Twitter or your quickfire questions in the comments below. Gentlemen, what else is happening across Football Daily, Eurofootball Daily, FDFC?
Viral footy news will have probably already gone out, so go and check that out. And obviously, the Football Social is tomorrow, 3 o'clock. I think Arsenal is the big game, is
Arsenal
it?
Newcastle.
Arsenal Newcastle is the big game. That'll follow on the back of Liverpool versus Tottenham Hotspur as well, which is going to be a banger.
Woo.
Cool.
Exciting
Anything else?
stuff. No, I think that's it. I think the Football Social is absolutely what you should be watching right now. And obviously check out the 12th Man as well if you want to win some good prizes and beat your friends at fantasy football.
Football Social boots off at 2:45 on Football Daily. See you there with Josh Denzel.